everyone. This is Michelle with Star One, and I am on the road. Our new podcast, Stories from the Road, are about 22 years of real estate in the state of Florida and all the fun people we've met and all the stories that we have to tell about our times. All the changes that have been happening in real estate with big changes coming up soon. But join me and Star as we tell our story about 22 years with Jeff Meyer, Star One. And the legacy lives on, and we look forward to meeting you in our travels. Thank you and enjoy Stories from the Road. The next story I'm going to tell you about, Star, is the story of the red PT Cruiser. So Jeff and I, in our happy trails, we would bounce ideas of marketing off each other all day. What if we did this, or what if we did that? And this was long before, we were on the TV and we had Star by our side. So Jeff gets this idea because we're driving around and he's seeing all these little PT Cruisers. And they were new at the time, that and the VW Bug. And he liked the VW Bug, but he didn't like it as much as he liked the PT Cruiser. So we get done with a listing, and in the afternoon he says, hey, let's go down and look at the PT Cruisers. So we go down by Countryside and we go where the PT Cruisers are. He goes, Michelle, go out there and pick a nice red PT Cruiser. I'm like, alrighty, don't you think we should drive it? He goes, they all drive the same. I said, I really think we should drive it a little bit. So he said, okay, we'll go pick one. I'm going to talk to the guy in here, and then we'll go from there. So I went out and I saw the one, they all kind of look the same, but some of them talk to you more than others. And so I picked out the PT Cruiser. The guy, his assistant lets me drive around the parking lot, and I come in and I go, yeah, that's a good one. He goes, okay, all right, we're going to buy this. And he whips out his checkbook and he just writes a check for the PT Cruiser. And I never saw anything like that before. I was a school teacher. We lived pretty humble during that time. And so there we go. We bought the PT Cruiser. They handed us the keys, and away we went. I drove the PT Cruiser to the office. He drove the Cadillac. Of course, we're talking to each other on the phone, and we drive up to the office because my car is there, so I need to drop that off. We need to drop off the PT Cruiser and get my car. So what we do is we pull into the office, and Jeff is like, oh no, Karen's here. And we all know, my little experience I had with Karen on day one. And so Karen comes out and she's got a cigarette in her hand. She goes, what the hell is this? And I'm like, I'm saying nothing because I'd already learned. I've been playing this game for a while. I don't say nothing. Jeff handles it. He goes, this is the PT Cruiser. We're going to use it for advertising. We're going to load it up. And Michelle's going to drive it around everywhere so everybody sees it. And she says, with her cigarette in hand, Michelle's not driving that car anywhere. I'm just like, okay, here we go. But these are just, the squabbles. Jeff and Karen, they fought all the time like Jeff and I did. I shouldn't say fight, bicker, call us the Bickersons. Because Jeff just did stuff that he wanted to do. He didn't feel he needed to run it by anyone. He just did what he wanted to do. So he gets the PT Cruiser, and that's the beginnings of the PT Cruiser. So we loaded up with the logos and everything. And at the time, Jeff had started to advertise in the St. Pete Times, and there were papers left over. So he said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to take these leftover papers, which, by the way, he had like 10,000 of them. He goes, we're going to take these papers, and we're going to roll them up, and we're going to toss them in the neighborhoods on their driveway. Now, most people don't know, but Jeff used to own several paper routes in Ohio, so he was well versed in the tossing of the paper over the car to throw it. The only thing is these weren't as heavy as his newspaper. So he gets this idea. What we're going to do is we're going to scroll up the paper, the advertising, put a rubber band on it, put it in plastic bags, and then we're going to toss it. Now, this is quite a job. There's like 10,000 of them. So he goes, okay, what we'll do is, how about we get the kids to help us? So this is a great idea. This was the beginning of recruiting the recruits. So each of us go home with our stack of flyers, and while he's watching Hogan's Heroes and Andy Griffith and those shows that he loved, he sat, and Deb sat, and I'm sure Jeffrey and Marion sat rolling up papers, putting on the rubber band, tossing them in the bag. We did the same thing. My kids watching hockey games or football games, rolled up the paper, rubber band on, in the bag. So we end up with about 5 huge garbage bags of flyers. And we decide we're gonna head out. So Jeff and his kids come over and pick up me and my kids, and we go out on the road tossing these papers on everyone's driveway. One of the funny stories that comes from this is that Jeff and Tyler would wear their rollerblades because they were just starting to get into roller hockey. So they wore their rollerblades as they tossed papers. The little kids, we would just roll up and they would toss them out the window because we didn't want them to get out of the car. But the big boys were doing it, and then Jeff and I would toss. So we would drop them off at one end of the street, and we'd go and we'd turn around and go to the end of the street. So we're in one of the neighborhoods, and Jeffrey goes and puts the paper up on the stoop for the homeowner, and the homeowner sees him. And the homeowner comes out of the house, and he is running after Jeffrey. And Jeffrey is skating like the wind. Jeffrey was the fastest skater I ever saw. He had really long legs like his dad. He could, skate like the wind. And Jeff's like, go, go, go. And we open up the doors. Jeffrey jumps in the car, and away we go. Tossing no more papers that night because that was pretty exciting. But we did this all the time, and one of the reasons the kids always loved to go was when we were done tossing papers, we would go to the 7-Eleven. And they would get out, the 7-Eleven that was right outside of Fairway Oaks is where we would always go. And we would pull up, and all of them would jump out of the car, and they would run into the 7-Eleven, and Jeff said they could have whatever they want. So they got candy and chips and sodas, because that was their special treat for going and throwing papers. And that was, something we did for a long time until we started finding, the paper routes and putting it in mailboxes and that. But one more story that is kind of funny is that Jeff gets a call. We always put them out like on a Friday or Saturday. So Jeff gets a call from a president at an HOA, the one down in Wintry, and he says, Mr. Meyer, why are all your papers on my front yard? And Jeff's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We delivered those papers to all the houses. Well, one of the Karens, picked up all the papers in the neighborhood and took them and threw them on that HOA president's lawn as a protest to finding out what houses are for sale. I don't understand what people do sometimes, but they do the funniest things. But that was a funny story too. But the kids and me and Jeff, we always had a wonderful time together doing whatever crazy thing it is that Jeff wanted to do. And all of his ideas were inspiring and fresh. And he didn't care if people hated him or not. We were going to do them because when we work for our clients, we give it our all. And sometimes we get into trouble. But, he always worked on I would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. So this is the story of the PT Cruiser. And join us next time when I tell you the story about the ladies on the listings.